the multi-sectoral forum. This forum will begin on Monday.
As ODM, we have our policies, and ODM has decided to go for talks to negotiate in a wider so that the next government being formed after this cabinet has been dissolved is a government of national unity. I'm not scared because I'm already 80 years old, and I don't think there is anything that I want. I just want something good for our country.
You have to think, leaders, please stop the psychophancy. That is what Gen Zs are saying. Please think for yourself.
Tukaongea tukasema tuweke kongamano ya watu, dialogue na Bwana Ruto, ili kwa ni people's dialogue. Sio atikwenda kuongea na Bwana Ruto na UDA. Sio mambo ya atikwenda kukaa na hao watu kuongea ati mtapatia sisi nini, ati tupatie hii mkono, patie sisi paja, sisi mguu. Sisi mambo watu ya kwenda kuomba.
If there were consultations about having a national dialogue, my view is those who are hurried and there wasn't a full consultation.
Talking to Ruto is to assure his survival. Ruto is the one who is going to gain because he'll be in power until 2027. Lakini Gen Z wametuonyesha kwamba with Gen Z we don't have to wait until 2027.
Vijana wameingia ndani ya bunge mpaka wakaenda kwa kiti cha Bwana Spika. Wakasema ya kwamba hawana imani na bunge. Wakawaita hao MPs. Sasa vile nasema bunge hii sasa there's a vote of no confidence by the people. Bunge hii ndio kwanza iende.
Tunataka kumwekea baba shida zote. Sema baba, ukisema right ni right, ukisema left ni left. Baba is only one life to lead and we have to protect him. You have to think, leaders, please stop the psychophancy. That is what Gen Zs are saying. Please think for yourself. Think on your feet. Vijana wanafikiria on their feet.
If we have to go for dialogue, number one, we want these people to be compensated, their families. Number two, wale maskari ambao wameua vijana wetu watafutwe wawekwe ndani.
Designation ya IG is not enough. We want this IG apelekwe Hague, apelekwe ICC. This is genocide in Kenya.
We want to support your dialogue. Na mimi nasema ya kwamba this dialogue must be people-centered. Lazima majensis wetu pia wahusishwe katika dialogue ili kuweze kupata suluhisho.
Mazungumzo yanapokuwako, tujue ya kwamba mazungumzo ni ya kumrudisha William Samoei Ruto kwa kiti. Kwa sababu wa Kenya wamemkataa. And I know this is a very difficult thing kwa wengine.
All right, difficult questions there regarding the resignation of Kware. That is not enough. It's the same script, of course, that we have different caste, all about transfers as far as when we have such kind of complications that are really coming in the security sectors and questions are being raised. Where have they been? This was just happening under your nose, right? Just near the police station where the macabre killings were happening. Holy Court this morning with Dr. James Nyikal, who is a member of parliament for Seme. Also, we have with us Dr. Makalimulu, who is a member of parliament, Kitui Central. Also, we have Senator Hilary Sigei from Bomet and also member of parliament from Mbeere North. This is Geoffrey Ruku. So this is it now. Let's just discuss about today we can. I know you've talked about a good game on what is really happening as far as the macabre killings is concerned. That is a matter under investigations. But we've heard from the legislators that that is not enough. We want to see these people being taken to the ICC, and this has been the calls from many, that people should not just go scot-free. We don't know on what circumstances that we had also the resignation of the Inspector General of Police? Was it prevailed upon him to resign? Did he feel that, of course, the burden of conscience that he was holding also was weighing heavily on him regarding this, and that he had to quit? Was it a matter of incompetence that has been raised by so many legislators as well in different quarters of this country at the end of the day? But this is something that we should be talking soberly in light of what is happening. We've barely some few years, or even a year since Shakahola tragedy. We don't even have any concrete report that is coming out from Shakahola. We saw that the government is still on it as far as the investigation is concerned. Barely have we even, all the fresh clod of soil has actually dried on some of the victims of Shakahola. We have another macabre killing here in the country. What is really happening?
I think the issue that we're dealing here is the issue of our security system. And I think now we're actually dealing with two things. One, the issue of how the police conduct themselves during picketing or demonstrations. I think that's a big one. And the young people who died, they were shot, and that Kware has resigned. I think he's taking responsibility as the head of the organization. But there are people who are actually seen. There are a lot of evidence, pictorial evidence from what you saw. We really must also go for those individuals. What did they do? Kware has taken the overall responsibility. That is not even enough. And those people, what instructions were they given? Because depending on what comes out of that, Kware may take even a bigger responsibility. Because if those people are acting under instructions, then that goes back to him. But if these are people who actually went and then started shooting at unarmed people, then you are talking of police gone rogue, or poor training of the police, or poor procedures in handling demonstrations. So these are all issues that actually, if you are talking soberly, we must look at. Particularly what I've disliked, having watched this, having been demonstrations, the use of non-uniformed officers. I don't see why during demonstrations people should go there in civilian clothes, and they are armed and they're policemen. There's nothing to be investigated when you're actually in the active part of a demonstration. I think that what is now required at that time is maintaining peace. So people must be uniformed, we know who they are. So I think that is one element which is also very big and goes back to the police. And it even comes to IPOA as well. What are they going to do about? You saw those people crouching with weapons, aiming at people. Those are things that we have. The other element we have brought is that people who are dying like Shakahola. Shakahola. Now, what is interesting there, if the security system in this country, as far as I know, politically they'll smell anything. Even if you have a meeting in your own house, if it's a political meeting, they'll smell it. How that could go on for so long without the security system picking it, I don't understand. It actually, they must have been abetting it. Even the system of chief, assistant chief, chiefs, village elders, how could that go on that? Because in a way it mirrors this one. But this, where we are now picking bodies from a quarry, again, it's a security system. There has been the person in charge of investigations have been putting theories. Could it be medical people gone rogue? Could it be serial killer? All that. I don't think those speculations are necessary at this time. They just have to investigate it. But it also points to a failure on our security system on detecting issues that are going on. So overall, on this one, the issue is that our security system, our investigation system, these special branch people, I don't think they're doing their job. When they were speculating, why wouldn't he even have said, what about security people gone rogue? Right. They can still part of it. Okay. So, but it's a failure of the security system, in my view.
I've raised this question before, and I want to raise it here because I think you, as members of parliament, also you had passed the National Coroners Act, isn't it? And the National Coroners Act, because there has been quest that people are feeling, you know, we need now to uncouple the police operation from this. so that also we have independent, not really uncoupled, but have also independent bodies working alongside police, so that some evidence are not really tampered with, if police were really involved in this. And we saw how the mistrust really comes to bear, where we saw a huge number of youth following, the corpses that were aboard the police trucks until the city mortuary, because they said, we don't want to have, we want to make sure that these bodies are taken to the mortuary, they're not really tampered with. There's a sort of a mistrust that is coming to bear on the police security or the security forces here in the country at the end of the day. The National Coroners Act is meant to come with an independent director coroner with the attendant forensic, apparatus that will help to do an independent investigation in case of this sort of killings that we have in this country, and many others as well, where we don't want the police officers to be the ones also who maybe they've perpetrated this heinous act, and they're the same people who are investigating. First of all, why haven't this been implemented? And why are there also the legislators who passed this particular National Coroners Act not really putting tails on it to see the implementation of it? It's a high time that now we should be calling for the national coroner, of this country, who will have an independent mind when it comes to investigating such atrocities that we are seeing in this country. Where is it at right now?
That's a good question, Libao. The truth of the matter is we passed that law, and me and actually Dr. Nikal were in Parliament at that time. The law was being passed. And I think the issue you are raising is the issue of implementation of that act. And what I would report is, it is not the only act which has been passed by Parliament and has not been implemented.
No, I'm just interested in
quite a number of them. And
for now, I think that is the answer to win, yes.
The reason as to why it has not been implemented, maybe that would be a question well posed to the executive, because normally once the Parliament passes an act of Parliament, most cases there will actually be an effective date on such an act. But as he has said, as Dr. Gallan said, when there is no goodwill to make things open, then automatically nobody will want to implement that law, because implementing that law means then you become more accountable. And I think that's what Kenyans are saying, that our people have died, and they agree they are dead, and we have already buried them. But can we know the truth? So it's the issue of accountability. And I want to give you a very simple example. Like yesterday when the DCI was actually making his statement, or the press statement, he said there are about 3 hypotheses. One of them was that serial killing could be taking place, or there could be some rogue medics who have decided that they will be killing people. And the third one was on a criminal, a cult. Mm-hmm. But even after saying that, people in the social media said the killings are being done by the police. It's actually the police who have dumped the bodies there. And it just shows the level of trust, that the trust levels for the police force have gone so low that Kenyans have to walk with the bodies all the way to the city mortuary to confirm that en route nobody decided to do anything to the bodies or tampers with the bodies. So about what we are saying is, time has come when now everybody has to be accountable. And in a situation where accountability is not there, then the person in charge of that particular office has to exit. The way I look at this thing, and we have a very, in this country over time, the intelligence over time has been very, very, I would say, effective. That the NIS has been giving information which would be able to help the government plan in terms of security operations. This is a situation where, as time goes, we're actually pushing more resources to the NIS. I can tell you, because I sit in the budget committee, that every year we are pushing a lot of resources to the NIS, And the expectation would be, we would be able to collect enough intelligence to stop some of the things we are seeing happening. But I like the terminology being used by Dr. Jalo. He says there's a collapse of the security system in this country. And I think really this is an area we need to discuss, because unless we discuss it, then we will see more of what is happening. People dying, being thrown to the quarries, people disappearing, never to be traced at all. And these are things to worry us as Kenyans, because if somebody dies, as you say, if the Coroners Act was effective, then we should be having an independent body which determines what was the cause of the death and who was responsible for the death. In that case, we'll be helping the country. But all said and done, we are where we are, that the act has not been implemented about.
Right.
We don't have a director. Do we call him Director General Corona? We call him what?
Corona General.
Corona General.
If I may just show our viewers as well, this is the Act itself, the Kenya Gazette Supplement Act 2017. As you can see it, that was Nairobi 23rd June 27 when it was enacted. That is the National Corona Service Act 2017. And maybe just to carry you through some of the articles that we have here, of course, short title, interpretation, objects of the Act, guiding principles, relationship with other laws, establishment of National Corona Service, establishment and composition of a service, access to service. This is just a listing of what they do have in the Act itself. Independence of a service, appointment of Coroner General and Coroners, qualification for appointment of Coroner General, terms of service of the Coroner General, removal from office, vacancies, structure of a service, officers and other staff, then functions and the powers of a service. Function of a Coroner General, functions of the Coroners also is given here. Let me just run you through so that at least you have an inkling of what we're talking about. Delegation of Coroner General, powers of Coroner. We'll just get some information. I'm just trying to tease out what they do have. So obligation to report reportable deaths and investigations of reportable deaths. Obligation to report certain deaths, reports of deaths in custody, mandatory reporting of all deaths, procedure where death is found to be due to an act amounting to an offense, death to be investigated by the service, collection of forensic evidence, etc., investigations and examination, purpose of investigation and matters to be ascertained, conduct of investigations, report by the coroners on investigations carried out, particulars of an investigation report, report prima facie evidence. I think the list is quite a long one. I won't go through the entire document, but let me just try and get what really matters for us. Exhuming body and recovering cremated remains, observing an autopsy. All this is listed. Removing tissue or for autopsy testing, permit for disposal, authorizing burial of body, notifying registrar when body is released and investigation ends. And these are questions that sometimes some of us people have not appeared on the OBs. Control of deceased bodies, direction for other coroner to conduct investigations, investigations lasting more than a year. All these are given here. So you're asking who is a coroner. It says here, part 1, on the preliminary, this act may be cited as the National Coroners Service Act 2017. In this act, unless the context otherwise requires, Cabinet Secretary means the Cabinet Secretary for the time being responsible for matters relating to justice. Coroner means the Coroner General appointed under Section 9 and the Coroner appointed under Section 15. Custody means detention of a custody, and it goes on and on and on. Maybe you can just pick up a copy of it for the interest of time so that you can also get be intimately acquainted with what it's saying. A person appointed by, let me just go through where we have the function so that you get an inkling of where we are having. It says establishment of a National Coroner Service. There is established a service to be known as the National Coroner Service, which 2017 has not been established so far. The service shall be a body corporate with perpetual succession and a common seal, and shall, in its corporate name, be capable of suing and being sued, acquiring, holding, charging, and disposing movable and immovable property, and doing or performing all such other things or acts for the proper discharge of its function under this act. This service shall comprise Coroner General appointed under Section 9, Coroners appointed under Section 9(2). The headquarters of the service shall be in Nairobi. The service shall ensure reasonable access of services of the service in all parts of the Republic, so far as it is appropriate to do so, having regard to the nature of the service. In the discharge of its function, the exercise of the powers under this Act or any other written law, the service shall be independent and free from any interference. Independent and free. So we hope a person who influences or attempt to influence the decision of a Coroner General or member of a service interfere with the exercise of powers or the performance of a function under this Act commits an offence. There shall be a Coroner General of the service who shall be competitively appointed by the Cabinet Secretary on the recommendation of a Public Service Commission. And of course, qualifications are given here. The functions and powers of a service. So I think that's important. Coordinate the service throughout the country, ensure efficient delivery of the service, of the function and services of service in accordance with the Constitution, enact and any other written law, ensure that all debts which the service has jurisdiction to conduct an investigation on are properly investigated in a timely manner, monitor and evaluate investigations of debts by the service, issue guidelines to other coroners to assist them in the exercise of performing of their functions. Perform such other functions are conferred or imposed by or under this Act or any other law. The coroner shall be the administrative head of coronal services in the county in respect of which he or she is appointed. And it goes on and on. But still, this should be the body that will have been now retrieving these bodies from Quarry.
You're right.
They should be the people who are the coroners who will be handling this, and they're supposed to be independent. So if police also, as is being put with other people who say they have good authority, that we have operatives from the government who were the machinery behind this, first of all, abductions that we have in the country, because we can try and separate the two, because they're saying this will have been a cultic move, that we're looking at what is being perpetrated here with dismembering of the women's and their bodies parts as well, is akin to what was happening with Shakahola report. Please don't call Dr. Nyikali is in studio and he seems to be having challenges on putting his phone off, please. Should I help you, Dr. Nyikali?
No, it is, don't worry.
No, we don't want to listen to radio here in the studio. We're here to have conversations. Huh?
Okay, done. Yeah, it's
I know those challenges. Sometimes when you feel like you want to throw your phone, yeah, it doesn't really go off. Yeah, don't worry. Okay, but let's hear from Honorable Ruku. You can see we have the Act. It will have been the independent body to carry out investigations.
As you have gone through the Act, I think it's a very well thought Act. And as you know, before the Act is enacted, or the bill is enacted, it goes through a lot of public participation process, and all the bodies or organizations involved in that specific area or discipline, they bring in their views to that to tailor the bill to be a proper law. So I think this Act is very well thought, and actually is sickening to see what is happening in Kware. It's very sickening. We are asking, or we will ask ourselves where the nation is headed, or where the society, not necessarily the nation, but the society, because assuming that there is a cut somewhere which are mutilating bodies of women only, it is sickening. It is something very frightening, and I think if this Act was operationalized, they will be able to answer some of these questions. They will be able to even give the police service support in carrying out those investigations, ensuring the area is, because we have seen the population going to Kware site. They have no even graphs. They have nothing to go inside the dump site or the quarry site. So it's a very bad situation. It's a situation which should not be happening in Kenya in this era. It's a situation in which, as a government, Kenyan government need to do something drastic in terms of preparedness on such issues. We saw the same thing.
What drastic measures? We have the National Disaster Management Authority. I don't know if disasters in this country is falling within the hallmarks of famine and the floods. If this is not a disaster, I don't know how we'll describe it. Maybe you can try and help me, because we've not seen either the county government operatives on the ground, even just trying to give gears to this young man, Wambua, who was getting into the murky waters, I mean, and the road. I mean, you look at it, it's really appalling.
Yeah,
right? There's no any hazmat that he's putting on. It's just sheer, confidence and a good heart that he has to try and just retrieve these bodies from there. It's the psychological impact of it for him. I mean, someone should actually, because you're affected by these things vicariously. You think that you're handling dead bodies. I mean, seeing members, dismembered legs, head, hands.
Yes.
It's a big shame. We should call out. I expect it to be calling out also the county government of Nairobi.
Yeah, it's indeed a big shame. It's both to our authorities as a government, as well as the county government of Nairobi, or even the leadership of that specific area. I saw a clip in social media. One guy was calling upon the area member of parliament to go there and help them with even buying gloves or such kind of things. So I think it is a situation which is not good for any sober society. We will need to interrogate ourselves, get to know what is all this, so that we can be able to see how, moving forward in the future, how such kind of issues can be handled. But we have an act of parliament which has not been implemented, an act of parliament which can help in such kind of situations in future. I think it should call upon the government to ensure the National Coroners Act of 2017 is implemented, so that such situations may not occur in future. But at the moment, we are in a very bad state. We don't want to be seeing this kind of issues or matters in future. So I think let all the arms of government relevant, whether it's the Ministry of Interior, we're supposed to probably put this act into effect. Let them move with speed and do that. The police service, please move with speed, do that investigation. Let Kenyans know what exactly is happening. Why are we having bodies of women mutilated, their body parts cut? What is happening? Which is this cut?
Right.
Is it, I don't know, our morals, where are we ended as a society? So I think we need to go to the bottom of the matter, and we ensure we come up with ways or strategies of ensuring such kind of things are not going to happen. These are mothers and sisters. Their family, their loved ones are affected. It is, you can imagine the power if it's your sister or your mother or your cousin who is in such a situation, and you get to know our body is being retrieved in such a situation, you'll be affected. You not only be affected for a short time, but probably for a very long time. So it's something which we don't want to see. It's unfortunate. It is happening at the moment, but it's play that the government is going to put measures for such kind of situations not to be repeated in the future.
Indeed. So, Sige, we still have a very dim comprehension of what is really happening currently on these envenomed attacks that we can see, very barbaric, diabolical. We should have all these adjectives into it, because this is just, demonic at the end of the day. But the question would be, since we don't have any clarity on Shakahola, on the organ harvesting, because we're being told some body parts are missing from, of course, the women. I don't know why they're primarily targeting the women at the end of the day. Is it a network that is happening, underground in this country, that organ harvesting is happening? Because even with the Shakahola reports, we don't have a full disclosure, and people speaking, on very muted tones when it comes to organ harvesting. But it could be a very nefarious activity that is happening underground in this country, and we should be wary of our women, our children, our sisters, our mothers, our aunties as well at the end of the day. These are questions that we need to bring to bear and ask. We had a report that was to be submitted by Mutaba Musimi regarding just the religious activity around the country. The only report that we got so far is a report that was led by Danson Mungatana with the Shakahola committee that went about the country and also questioning some of the clergies that they could have been suspect on this at the end of the day. That's it. That's it. And now the government on and off as far as the exhumation of the bodies is concerned, and the burial and the DNA activity around it, it has been muted. But everyone is still having probing questions regarding what really happened with the Shakahola.
Dibal, it's quite sad, as I had earlier on said, that we are experiencing this in this time and era in Kenya. Well put, Shakahola was one horrific story. The report that came in from the committee that was chaired by my colleague, Senator Mugatana, gave recommendations. Remember, there was also the other committee that was set up by the executive, and some people went to court and challenged it. That's not a big deal. The issue is, why is it that this sort of systematic killings is targeting women? And though we are still, at the moment, struggling to appreciate any report from the investigative agents, there's a bigger issue, as you can hear every Kenyan, whether from the families who are affected or generally from the public, that we need justice, that we need to know the truth of the matter. Mm-hmm. Who are the players behind? Is it a sect that is harvesting human organs, as you've said? Why is it that then it's specifically, for instance, targeting certain body organs and in particular from women? It's a whole issue that we need to get a report beyond just the public, loud statements that we make, and also blame game as to it's this sect, it's the government, or it's bigger than just the blame game that is going on. And they say, Dibal, that the wheels of justice grind slowly, but it's exceedingly fine. That is one saying that sort of warns us that whenever we would want to gain or to get justice over a subject matter, it takes time. But the issue is, do we really want to be this patient to wait for long to get to know some of these things? Mm-hmm. Because I know a number of them, probably, let's not forget that Shakahola was discovered last year, and it started as a small sect that had these members being profiled by those who are worshipping, and all of a sudden now bodies discovered and leading to the investigation. This is almost the same one now. Within few days, we've discovered over 8 bodies. Now we're talking about, I heard earlier on that there are 2 additional bodies discovered. Where is the missing link? And I would dare say it's one of the failures that the security and the intelligence system has failed. That one, we must admit that. To the extent we are getting to discover these days after or even weeks after, there is a missing link, there is a missing, there's someone who is missing in terms of ensuring their responsibility is fully done and honored. And this case is the security and the intelligence. You've raised something very interesting about the National Coroners Act, something that very many people, I know very many Kenyans would not even, probably are not even aware of the existence of such a law in place. And as you've put it, why is it that we have not operationalized it? Had we operationalized this particular act, would it have been involved in such cases? And the answer is yes, of course it would have been. The National Coroners Authority or Council would be the one involved in this, in such kind of investigations. And who knows, it would have helped to deter such future homicides or killings which are unnatural, because this is one of such cases where it would really be within the mandate of this particular organization. Now, this is an act that was passed into law in the year 2017, and I'm privy to a court case that challenged the position of the Attorney General, because one of the reasons why this act has not been implemented is because of lack of a specific ministry relevant to implement the National Coroners Act by creation of the authority, appointment of the National Coroner and coroners, establishment of devolved coroners offices, and setting it up for purposes of operation. And a litigant went to court. I remember, remember we had the Ministry of Justice in the coalition government, the Kibaki government, 2002, 2007, and in 2017, that is when there was a decision in court. I can't recall exactly the citation of the case, but the court did determine that the office of the Attorney General, who ordinarily was supposed to be acting as the cabinet secretary relevant to implement such an act, is not a cabinet secretary for purposes of Article 156 of the Constitution. And so that means in this case, one of the reasons as to why we have not been able to implement this act is the absence of a justice ministry. Do we then want to look at a position where we are asking the government establish a justice ministry so that we can implement this particular act and to deal with such occurrences, including the killings which we are now talking about, the Shakahola stories, and very many other non-natural killings. And it is one of those issues that it's probably high time to look at it and ask ourselves, is it then the time to create a justice ministry? Or we do, because the justice ministry during the Kibaki government was established by virtue of an executive order. Do we then also ask the president to establish a particular ministry relevant to deal with this issue by an executive order without necessarily having to say the office of the Attorney General is not involved? And interestingly, the government did not appeal against that decision, by the way. The government did not appeal against the decision that declared that the Attorney General is not a cabinet secretary, although he attended cabinet meetings and is the principal government legal advisor. So it's high time that we have a bigger and a deeper appreciation of the need to establish, to implement the National Coroners Act. Some of these questions which we are asking the Inspector General of Police, we are asking the DCI Director, and we are asking the police officers who are within the jurisdiction of this occurrence, and saying that they have failed, would have been well answered by an entity that is in law fully mandated to deal with this issue. And so it's a live conversation that we must prolong, but we also need then to ask Kenyans of goodwill to also support, because it cannot be that bodies are dumped and no Kenyan probably has got a hint or two of what's going on, despite the fact that we have got reportings of families saying their loved ones have been missing for a couple of days, a couple of months.
It had to take a spiritual intervention.
And by the way, yes.
By the way, it had to take a spiritual intervention for we should.
The challenge would
so
be.
To speak.
Remember Shakahola.
Sounds spooky, but it had to come to that particular. Yeah.
Remember Shakahola is courtesy of a church institution. Spiritual nourishment, spiritual leadership was deep in charge of the Shakahola killings. So, though we would be saying it might require spiritual intervention, we should also question and not necessarily just entrust that we will sit back and say we need intervention. They could be the ones involved, you never know, the way we had Shakahola and the church having fully involved in the killings that we all experienced and witnessed in the Shakahola massacre and the bodies that were discovered. And the story is still going on because we have not fully unraveled what indeed happened in Shakahola. Because, of course, of the body parts that are being stolen and the time that it took for some of these things to happen. It is so sad that this had to happen. It's so sad that this is currently happening in Kenya in the 21st century. Very sad indeed.
So let me ask you, because you raise a very important question regarding the Cabinet's Ministry of Justice. Yes. And when you're crafting this particular legislation, you're fully aware that we don't have, or even the Constitution. All right, it can be a creation from the executive, isn't it? Right? The Cabinet Ministry of Justice. So, but you're aware that we didn't have such a ministry, or was it envisioning that we'll have a Ministry of Justice? Because if that is the impending tripping wire, why we do not have an effective and functioning National Coroners Service, then we need to relook. Why then were you legislating on such a bill, and you know why weren't you raising questions? Or is this just part of where the parliamentarians were sleeping through? And
when my phone was playing up, I was actually trying to download it, and if you can scroll down.
I scroll down?
Under I think it will be...
under what?
Under definitions.
Definitions?
Yeah.
I go back.
Will be section 2. And because under that you should actually define the minister who will take charge of it, and that's what you're saying.
It says actually the Ministry of Justice, when you saw the cabinets.
Because if that's the case, then
the cabinet secretary says cabinet means the cabinet secretary is responsible for matters relating to justice.
Yeah, so it's relevant minister. It's not really specific ministry.
So we don't have a specific ministry, and Honorable Sige raised a very important issue.
That definition of the cabinet secretary for the time being responsible for matters relating to justice, that term is often used in legislation because the ministries are set up by executive order, and therefore the president normally has the opportunity to move departments. And I wouldn't say that right now that would strictly be confined to the Ministry of Justice. Anybody who is any ministry that's relating to it would actually undertake it. I think
the Ministry of Interior.
That actually would be the ministry. Because if you just confine to the word justice and you want to say there must be a ministry that is saying justice,
solely justice,
then it will not, because even if you go to all other acts, the ministry in charge of, so the ministry that is in charge of those activities at the time really should take it up. It doesn't have to be mentioned in when you are legislating as a specific ministry, because the president has the duty to change in executive orders. So I still think that the ministry that handles such things should actually take it up. And as things stand, as I see it now, actually the Ministry of Interior should look at it. And the one thing...
But Honorable Sige seems to be speaking on good authority that that's the ultimate impending factor with this.
It even went to court.
It was in court.
I was making reference to the decision in that matter in court, and it says that, of course, one of the reasons now later on in the course of the reporting is that the reason as to why it has taken over 3 years to implement the act is because of lack of political goodwill and
a
legal bottleneck over which cabinet secretary should name the coroner general and determine the terms of the coroner's services. And that is now where the reference to the former Ministry of Justice came in, and a finding of the court as to the fact that the Attorney General is not the minister related, or is not a cabinet secretary for purposes of the implementation of this act. Though that decision came in, then, I mean, we haven't had, and it will not stop the implementation had we, for instance, had an executive order. And that is why I was saying this is most likely the right time then for the president to appoint via an executive order a minister relevant to justice to make sure that this particular act is enforced or is implemented.
Now that he's mulling over to constitute a new cabinet secretary, then I think
let's hope.
I think the cabinet body, then this will be a good providential time for the president to make sure this is streamlined. And in light of what we're going through, that we have a national
Corona service
why
I like the issue of a political will. Normally when you have situations, this may not be the only law that you will find that vagueness in the ministry. But normally it will be then the ministry that is dealing with those matters on daily basis would then take charge. And when the president is doing the executive order or putting in ministry's place, that department will then be put in this ministry. In my view, the Ministry of Interior actually has been dealing with this, because even now the police are there, and therefore, and I think there was even a time that we were even trying to put a big lab,
right, but
a big forensic
lab, yeah,
which was then under the police. Because this, what I know is that if that lab gets into place, it definitely will fall under this Corona General. So I think it's laxity and
but if you say that the police are there, Honorable Makali, we know right now there's an ominous cloud really hanging over the police, because we've seen people with balaclavas. There seemed to be a parallel security operation, and also going by some of the sentiments that some of the panelists were saying there, that this was even beyond the IG himself, right? They couldn't really have control of this special unit that was abducting and running a prosecution, and also the disappearance that we've seen currently.
And actually, that's why I think even from the word go, I don't think at any point, even when we are enacting this law, that we are thinking the Ministry of Interior would be part of this, because you know that's where the police is.
Yeah, because we want an independent body.
Independent.
Completely.
You remember at one point we had a ministry called Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, which was headed by Mother Karua, that was such, and later by Mutula Kilonzo, you remember?
Senior, yes.
But now, in the formation of the government, through the executive order, which comes immediately after the new government is formed, the president will be able to say this particular department will belong where. And I'm telling you, even as we are talking now, the Department of Justice, which takes care of all issues of justice, is actually under the AG's office. The only challenge is now that it's being said the AG is not a cabinet secretary. But you know, if you look at our constitution, you can't have a complete cabinet without the AG, because the AG is part of the cabinet. And I think, as we said, the underlying problem in this matter is the political goodwill. Because the thing is, if you bring this Corona General into office, then police will be held accountable, because there will be an independent eye saying, this is what exactly happened, and then Kenyans will be able to know what happened against what the police are reporting.
Yeah, so they can be able to corroborate what the police is giving
so in that
independently.
Case, then, people get to know more. So to me, I think it really is an issue of goodwill. Because even now, when it forms the next government, the Department of Justice will still be under ministry somewhere, either AG, or it could be pushed to another ministry, but I can tell you it will not be DIRIO. Because the DIRIO, then you can't have justice issues being combined with the internal security matters. It's normally not the case. Yes.
Because the executive order would read like the Coroner General's office would be under a certain ministry, and then you put it in the appropriate ministry, and it will work. Then again, if we see like, again, Senator had a very important point. If it went to court and that matter became apparent that there is lack of clarity, that is normally what you have. That's why you have miscellaneous amendments. So you would have expected that somebody would have picked it quickly for such an important thing at the government level and actually brought a miscellaneous amendment so that would be corrected. But in the meantime, it would actually work. You see, what is really upsetting me, even the process of retrieving these bodies, if there's some suspected criminal activity and something, even the way you retrieve the bodies, the way you transport them, the way you are going to treat them when they get there is important. And sometimes you wonder whether it is not being allowed to go there to happen in such a way that the evidence will disappear. And then the courts are independent. If you don't bring good evidence, that is it. The case is lost. So I think this particular piece of law should actually be implemented.
Right.
Yeah, because there is now the police pathologist.
Right.
If you brought this in this place, even the police, the government pathologist would actually fall under this. So structurally, that's something needs to be done.
Right.
They even know how. Look at when you have those young men going down there with their bare hands, as we are saying. Even that process of retrieving, there should become a department that has got skills and technical information, not ropes, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think goodwill is the issue.
Allow me to just take a short break. I hear my music is up, just indicating, yes, it's 8 o'clock on the nose. We've got to take a short break right now. And of course, questions coming to the fore regarding also the National Coroners Service Act that should be in place in 2017. And we've heard from our panelists, there's lack of political will to have a coroner general in this country who should be ideally handling this matter forensically, what is happening with the exhumations of body and retrieval of bodies well from the quarries, even the Shakahola spectre that the country is still grappling with to come and understand what is really happening with these gory killings that is going on. And we have this distempered feeling in the country that there's such a disconnect on the security apparatus and on the welfare of the citizenry. And questions are abound why it is not really affected. And we think this should be the ideal time, providentially, that it should be in place. We're calling on also the president when he's constituting his ministers as well. Should they consider, as is being put across here, the ministry or the cabinet secretary of justice, where this particular office should be domiciled. And we need an independent investigator who will corroborate with the police officers or the findings from the police investigations so that they are in tandem or there's any, of course, these similarities that indexes that are rising as far as differences is concerned. Those are poignant questions that we need to, of course, put in the public domain right now. There is a National Coroners Act, Service Act, that has not been implemented, that will be squarely handling this particular scenario of retrieving bodies and looking and investigating on what really happened. And they have also the attendant equipment where they're facilitated fully to make sure they can carry out their duties. We take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we shall buckle down to some of the issues arising right now. Remember, today is a day where the national dialogue begins. ODM has also rallied its troops to make sure that they have a conversation around the national dialogue. And reports is, as some publications will put it, that their ministry is lined up for the broad government, or a broad-based government, as is being put by the president, where this amount of semantics that we need also to slice and dice. We take a short break. We're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime. See you on the other side of the break.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Kwa miaka mingi tumekuwa tegemeo kwa nchi nzima kwa habari za kuaminika, matukio katika nyanja